Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me live and direct. This is the BroDiallo broadcast. How y'all been? I know it's been a minute, out of my control, out of my hands. What can you say? But I've been gone. But you know what? I think it's good to just fall away, just go missing sometimes, just so people can see what a world without BroDiallo looks like and feels like. Anyway, I missed y'all. Uh, I'll tell you what happened. I had a trip to New York, right? So I'm in New York, right? On some other things. And my wife contacts me and was like, yo, Shayun Kuti. She doesn't say Shayun Kuti. She just say Shun. Shayun's going to be in New York. And you there already. Woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, oh, shit. And she was like, and I got some time. So I'm going to come up to New York. We're going to meet. We're going to go to the show. So we go to the show. Shayun rocks the house. You know, we meet up with him and his entourage later. And he is like, next stop, Chicago. And I'm like, we about to fly back to Chicago. This is all like ancestors working, y'all. And so fly to Chicago and get another show back to back. And so Shayun says to me, yo, you should come check. I'm in your area. I'm in the Midwest. Come through. You want to come through? You want to come to Toronto? You want to come boom, boom, boom? And I'm like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. And so I hang out with him here. We go to Ontario. We go to DC. But then it was a trick. He tricked me. Tricks. Think he tricking. And dude is like, yo, I want to talk to you about some things. And I'm like, oh, shit. I thought I was here to just kick it. So we talked about some things. We politicked on some things. We planned and strategized and conspired on some things. So we got some things coming. So I thought I was going to get away and just be able to spaz out, kick it, do tour to tour, city to city, good music, good food. But, it was a trick. It was a trap. The brother wanted, build, on some things. So anyway, long story short, I got some things coming, organizational, community level shit, and some other big things. So with another Pan Africans brother from the motherland. So it was still good. It was mad relaxing, mad exciting, mad interesting. But now I'm here and I'm ready to 10 toes down, get back on the grind. And along the way, yeah, I got to meet Vic Mensa for the first time. I've always known who Vic Mensa was. And I met Vic Mensa at his Chicago studio, heard some music, amazing fucking music. Man, that dude could rap good. And Shayun and him song. And heard some really good music from Vic Mensa. And learned some about his roots and his origins in Ghana. So it was a good time. Met Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, met a lot of different artists. I ain't got time to go over all that. I don't want to brag. Ain't like it's me anyway. It's all him. Ain't nobody around to see me. But I got to meet and break bread with people from the Midwest to the East Coast to the North. So shout out to New York, Michigan, Ontario province, and of course always Chirac. Anyway, big fun. Sorry I missed y'all and I wasn't here, but I'm here now. And I was trying to set up on the go, but I'm not accustomed from going city to city like that and traveling like that. So I'm not, that ain't never been my lifestyle. So it was relatively new to me. But anyway, I guess moving on. I appreciate y'all being so patient and understanding in my absence. I appreciate the people ongoing support, and let's just get into this evening because we got a lot to get into. And I'm interested in hearing from y'all because I ain't heard from y'all. I ain't engaged with y'all in a while. People talking crazy, mad, crazy shit already. People talking shit, and I know I should ignore it, but like this Sky Gun. Yeah, I love people that talk reckless anonymously. Sky Gun. I know that's not your name or even your real alias, no vote move blue no matter who Negro. If you ever that can't be me because I ain't never uttered those words or made such a suggestion. But then I have to say this. Maybe, just maybe, some of my assessments, conclusions, analysis, observations might go over some people's head because people want that simplistic food, spoon-fed shit. I can't Umar my shit. I can't Snow Bunny the immigrants. I can't fucking get on here and just make shit simple because shit ain't never been simple. And I tell you, the most crucial weapon for you to cultivate if you want to have any type of positive impact on the world, if you want to make any type of positive contribution to the just aspirations of African people, the most important weapon that you have to develop is your mind, is your intellect, your analysis, your ideology. This is the United States. I can get in a car and drive 15 minutes and buy all manner of guns, unobstructed. I can go buy guns and ammo and fill this little office up with all the guns and ammo I can afford. It's easier to get a weapon in this country than it is to get a quality education, quality insights. There are more gun ranges around these places than bookstores. There are more authorized concealed carry certification instructor when I go up and down Indiana. Authorized concealed carry. We got more of that than we got scholars and philosophers. They ain't never been afraid of our fucking guns. We've always had guns. At the height of Jim Crow, African people had guns. My great-grandfather, Grandpa, Mr. Sonics Bowie, up in Oklahoma during Jim Crow, up in Missouri during Jim Crow. My people all up in Louisiana in Jim Crow, and not one of them. I got ancestors. I just went to visit with my 90-year-old aunt. I called her earlier today, and she cursed me out because I called her during nap time. She was just, had her tea and walked her dog and was taking a nap, and I called her. I had some bad news for her, but I didn't give it to her because I wanted her to have a restful afternoon. So I'll just call her tomorrow earlier. But long story short, I talk to my people and not one. Go talk to if you got people in their 80s. My mother was born in Jim Crow. If you know some boomers or older in your family, black people, go talk to them. And all the lynching and racial assault that we endured, there was always guns. My great-grandfather had his double-barrel shotgun leaned up in that corner. And I remember when the gun was taller than me, from a little boy all the way up into a young adult. My great-grandfather had that big double-barrel shotty right, the blood clot there in the corner. It ain't never been the guns. You talk to somebody from back in the day, they ain't never say, oh, if we only had guns. If we only had bullets. They say if we only had our minds right, if we only were stuck together, if we only understood, if we only had our dignity. You find that most of the things that people that endured the horrendous horrors of our history, our recent history, the recent horrors that endured in this society, the last fucking thing they ever tell you is lament is the lack of guns. If I only had a gun. What caused us to have to struggle was getting together intellectually. Our analysis, our understanding, our comprehension, our even enthusiasm, our fervor. They put more effort into warping our minds than disarming us. I don't know why I got into that. And I was curious today. I was just thinking about that because I was I've been kind of following the ATK and Six beef and Fulio and Young and Ace. Don't ask me why. It just kind of fascinates me that these young Africans are slaughtering each other for white suburban entertainment. And they caught the 3 people. Actually, it's 5. 2 are still on the run. But they caught 3 people. They apprehended 3 people who murdered Fulio. And what always stands out to me since I was a kid is that these people went and did a mafia style hit, paramilitary guerrilla style hit on this dude. They tracked him from location, some Night of the Jackal assassination on the op. Lit his car up, center mass shot, took that dude out. Vengeance over some stuff that happened a year ago. And when the white men show up, when the crackers show up, they were taken into custody without incident, so fucking peacefully. So they wanted, because this is a whole high profile thing, and of course, you know, the cops get off on this high slaughter, and they want to be part of the entertainment. These sheriffs now doing these press conferences, acting like they about to drop a single, they about to drop an LP. And so you got this trend now of these sheriffs who want to go on social media or call a press conference and sit there and talk real slick, talk slang, cracking on like people, this fucking wholesale slaughter, unprofessional as fuck. And people then snatch that shit out and share it across their social because he's talking greasy, threatening and mocking victims and perpetrators alike. But what always stands out to me is that these black people that can be so cunning, so ruthless, so consistent, so unrelenting, so homicidal and deadly when it comes to another powerless African, when it comes to the system, it's docile. So these people who committed a high-profile murder, mafia-style murder, and it wasn't just they saw him and like, oh shit, on site. They planned, organized, coordinated. They followed him to several locations. And they did it in the most spectacular way. The kind of shit black revolutionaries used to do. Black Panthers used to roll up on motorcycles and shut shit down. Black Liberation Army, Deacons of Self-Defense. The FMLN, the various guerrilla factions throughout sub-Saharan Africa, the communist guerrilla factions, armed revolutionary action, outside the law, extra legal. But you commit the crime of the century, as far as Jacksonville, Florida is concerned, and the white man come out with a bullhorn outside your mama's house. Come on out, boy. And you come out. Woo. I'm like, damn. And then we'll see them a few months later, and they'll be sitting there in court, just as docile, just as compliant, just sitting there. They get up on the stand. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. With the blood of other Africans in your hand. I imagine if an African ever make me so mad that I'm ready to shed blood and do whatever, then I'm like, it's over for everybody. How the fuck is it over for my own people and it ain't over for the other people? And I seen this firsthand. I lived in a housing project where some of the most lethal individuals, gangsters, affiliated, made men, because back in the 90s, all the gangsters were using this Italiano, La Costa Nostra type language. Haitian, Sicilian bullshit. But I see people living in substandard housing, and a gangster will pull up in the Flyers ride. That's back when Dayton's... Sorry. I should have probably closed that door, but it's hot in here. To let them go by. But I saw this firsthand. Dude's got the Flyers clothes, all his fucking jewelry, car. And they used to have them fat wheels with the spokes. I'm from the era when dudes used to put curb feelers on their car. Y'all remember that? My mama's boyfriends used to have curb feelers. Bring back curb feelers, car nuts. That shit was the coolest shit. It wasn't just Fuji's. Everybody was Italiano back then. But anyway, dude would pull up, and in our housing project, they had this cheap synthetic carpet. And when it would get too moist, and when you get rain and leakage or leaking pipes and shit, mold would be growing up out of the synthetic carpet. So you had to keep the carpet extremely sterile and clean, and we'd spray it with bleach because you have mold growing out of the carpet, and mushrooms Mushrooms growing out of the carpet, mold growing up all the walls, all the cheap ass plywood and pressed wood deteriorating. I mean, the projects was no fucking joke. I have a homeboy who was raised in the projects, and he went on to get his undergrad in accounting and finance and moved to New York, went to Wall Street and making money. And then he got on the stock market, day trading. This is 20, 30 years ago. So he pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and he would say to me, I haven't talked to him in a while, but he would say to me, you know, this successful man in nice suit and briefcase, respected, you know, white men calling him on the phone for advice on stocks, and bonds, and puts, and options, and commodities trading. He would have these severe foot issues because he used to walk around they lived in a basement unit. And he would walk around his mother's little project Section 8 apartment with no shoes on, and some type of fungi or something got embedded into his feet, and he's had foot issues his whole life. So this is a successful man, and he can't escape. Every day he wake up and he has to put these special ointments and shit on his feet. He's reminded of where he come from. So it ain't just psychological scars for people who make it out the ghetto. It breaks your body down. But anyway, I should have brought a kerchief. I didn't bring a kerchief. I would see these dudes pull up at their mama's house, whole house deteriorated, and they hit her off with a grip, give her a bundle of money, and then not only is the house shitty, they'll evict you for anything. Music too loud. If your child is truant in school, it wasn't just paying your rent, it's not enough. They come in your house and look at the condition of your house because of the poor toxic materials and blame you. You know, they give you a rickety ass refrigerator. That fucking refrigerator breaks down. If you tried to have an in-unit washer and dryer, they didn't allow that. If you wanted to get your child a little pet, a little kitten or something, and they come and evict you. And these dudes who terrorizing the block, nobody speak out of turn when they're around, nobody wear the wrong colors, nobody have the wrong associations. Dudes run the whole block and see their mother being thrown out on the street, and they pull up trying to stuff mattresses in the back of their tricked out ride. They ain't about to do no fucking violence against the legitimate system. All of their aggression, all of their violence, all of their cunning, all of their homicidal tendencies is only reserved for other black people, and not other black people, because if you were a black person with the sanction of the state, these social workers who were racist or dismissive and cruel, probation officers, anybody. So if you got the official approval of the state, you had nothing to fear. So this is just, and it's still that way. They still that way. And mockery and disrespect relentlessly from this system. And I'm just saying, treat other black people like you treat the fucking government. Treat your ops like you treat the motherfucking police. Protest your ops. Have a prayer and candle vigil. When your ops spin the block, have a prayer vigil. Have a candle vigil. Call a lawyer and sue them. Don't go gorillas. Don't hoodie and mask up. Don't put on them black gloves. And get them extended clips. Treat black people like you treat the fucking government. Treat black people better than you treat. Be as forgiving. If y'all can forgive Islam and the countless atrocities, Christianity, countless atrocities, U.S. government, countless atrocities, the banks, countless abuses and discrimination. It's just wild to me. Just go back and look at that shit. I'm like, these people are off of a high-profile murder. And when the cops roll out, they found 3 of them. 2 of them was in the same house. They were like, come outside. And them people, they came out, backed out, put your hands up, on your knees, hands behind your back. They didn't even snarl, didn't even show teeth. Didn't even have a hostile disposition. Didn't even have a wrinkle in their brow. Just came out as passive. Other dude, and they were like, sit on the curb. You sitting on the curb. I'm like, jeez, every fucking time. but it's like blue puppy kittens, I call them. You go look at those interrogation videos. I don't care. Brother just shot. I saw this on I think it was First 48. A dude ran up in the house, took out a whole family, men, women, children. There was like a 12-year-old girl. She was wounded, but she lived. Then he ran outside, threw the gun in the sewage drain. And I'm like, yo, when they catch up to this dude, he gonna crash out. They better bring the SWAT, National Guard, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and the Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts, because this dude is a savage. Savage. They caught up to him. They were like, come here, boy. Come sit down. Pat him on his head. You all right? Get in the back of the car. Let's go. And they had him in the police station. He there rocking, comforting himself, hugging himself. Anyway, moving on. Y'all didn't, Biden's gone. Damn, last time I was on the air, I think Biden was still the Democratic candidate, and now we got whatchamacallit. Now I got a lot to say, and I can't really get into it, but there's a movie, you probably seen it, called no, what's the name of that movie? Menace to Society. There's a movie called Menace to Society. And when I think his name was Trey or something, and he was talking to Will Smith's Jada Pinkett, and Jada Pinkett was telling him, get out the streets, we can make it. And she was like, let's move to Atlanta. Let's just move to Atlanta. And every scene she was in, she was trying to tell, I think his name was Trey, we got to get out of South Central. We got to get out of South Central. We need to move to Atlanta. And he turned to her at the close to the last scene, and he was like, you act like Atlanta ain't in America. That's always my favorite scene. His name was Kane, whatever it was. And when he said you act like Atlanta ain't in America, black people really think, okay, Kane, I'm sorry. When Kane told her you act like Atlanta ain't in America, I'm like, movie is a masterpiece. Whoever wrote this script. Grammys. No, what do you give them? Oscar. Because when it comes to politics, we act like we not in America. You act like voting ain't in America. Or is it better yet, as Bobby E. Wright said, black people have been in this country longer than anybody and we understand it the least. We've been in this country longer than anybody and we understand it the least. And I don't mean to offend. I just said don't have more smoke for African people than you have for non-African people. Oh, hold on. Let me go grab. I got to grab my thing. Give me a second. My wife sat at my desk today, but I can't even get mad at her because she sat at my desk with my permission. I said, why don't you just sit over here? And because she was trying to do something and trying to work something. And I said, why don't you just go sit over there and do it instead of trying to do it where the thing ain't working. Anyway, but now I can't find anything. You know, Cheon's wife has this song that I took personal. She has this wife, and the chorus is like, disorganized, upside down, disorganized, upside down, everything's upside down, disorganized. And I took that mad personal. I took that mad personal because I'm like, is she singing about me? Anyway, I found what I was looking for. But I was going to say my wife was at my desk, and that's why I can't find anything. But the reality is she was coming to what I did. This is what I did to myself. I'm over-prepared, actually. I'm not upside down and disorganized. I was like, oh, my wife's going to be sitting at my desk for a minute, so let me move my stuff out of the way before she starts trying to straighten and organize and fix shit. Anyway, so I got what I was looking for. Let me tell y'all something. We act like elections ain't in America. We act like Democrats ain't in America. We act like shit ain't is what it always has been. We act like shit ain't what it is. And I don't understand this. How many election cycles since the Emancipation Proclamation, since the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment? How many election cycles have African people been through since the goddamn Reconstruction era? How many election cycles have African people been in this country since, let's say, you might say, don't none of that shit count, because besides the little decade of Reconstruction, we didn't really have a vote. So let's say the 1960 Voting Rights Act, 1968, 1970, it hasn't been that long. It's only been about 30 years if you want to be conservative, maybe 45 years if you want to be generous, that African people could stroll to the polls without the threat of lynching and other discriminatory acts. And that didn't even last long, because dating to really the Bush administration forward, the second Bush administration, they've been eroding our voting rights and having other type of tactics. So black people, we've never lived through a fair election. We've never lived through a just election. We never lived through a non-racist, discriminatory, anti-democratic democracy. But this is a fucking menace to society, right? Tyler Williams, shout out to Tyler Williams, who said, because the whole hood, especially in the 90s, half my people I came up with live in Atlanta. Some of them didn't left. But I remember we was all acting like Atlanta was the promised land. We act like Atlanta ain't in America. But anyway, what my point is, we've been through too many fucking election cycles in this society, in this system, as U.S. citizens. Let me go down this rabbit hole. I'm going to have to regress and then I'll digress. You know, my wife, for the longest, thought ADOS stood for African Descendants of Slavery. And she just came to me. I don't remember when. She came to me and was like, Diallo. I'm like, yes. We don't have pet names for each other. I just never been a fan of pet names. I'm sorry. So she calls me Diallo. I call her Eric. Very formal couple. We are everything. My wife and I, we're a very formal couple. Diallo, yes, dear. None of that shit. Just what, Erica? And she said, did you know that ADOS, that the A in ADOS stands for American? I said, yes. She was like, all this time, I knew they were a reactionary group. I knew that, and she knows, like, she been bumping, and she was like, I ain't got no time or no interest in ADOS. I know they trash compacted. But I always assumed, and I always tell her she projects. My wife is the projection queen. She's always projecting humanity, sanity, sensibility onto shit to make it make sense to her, because she don't believe that motherfuckers could be that far gone. So she's always like, oh, that can't be what it is. That can't be. No. And so I'm like, you're always projecting. We were doing a business deal, right? And my wife, we had this, we were doing this business deal, and my wife was sitting there talking partnership. And she was like, oh, there's so many ways for us to work together to build these mutual businesses. And we'll be in Chicago. You'll be here in Kansas City. And these are ways we can coordinate, cooperate, build up, expand us together. Black business, black entrepreneur, black. And I had to say, Erica. She's like, what? I said, this man has no interest in anything. He's not like us. I said, he wants to buy us out and then build a barrier around to make sure that we can't re-enter. He has no interest in cooperation, coordination, any long-term relationship. He's here strictly for profit. He wants to buy this venture from us, buy the name, the infrastructure. He wants to buy the recipes, and he has no interest in having any type of contact or connection with any further ventures with us. And she looks at me, and she looks at him, she looks at me, she looks at him, and she's like, Zen. He's like, yep. Sign on the dotted line. You want this money or not? So she was like, oh. So she's always doing that, always thinking shit is sweet. She always thinks shit's sweet. Like, if think shit sweet is amazing. So anyway, I didn't know this because we always call it ADOS. Adios, that's good. And so she just, in her own mind, was like, it must be African Descendants of Slavery. Not that that's a good name. That's still a horrendous name. As I say, and what you need to tell these ADOS, POSs, that people don't descend from conditions. People don't descend from conditions. People descend from other people, from cultures, from societies, from lineage, from ancestors. You will not find a Jewish descendant of the concentration camp. Do you understand? Anybody that's trying to break your descendants from your lineage and attach your descendants to a horrendous condition is trying to dehumanize you, trying to isolate, manipulate, and exploit you. My mother was poor, high school dropout. I didn't descend from poverty. I didn't descend from teenage parent, even though my mother was a teen. I descended from Arthur Rome and Giovanna Jefferson. I descended from African people who were in oppressive conditions, but endured, navigated, and adapted the best way they could. And to remove my parentage, to remove my parents and only identify the negative condition, they don't even say descendant of resistance, descendants of rebellion, descendants of uprising, because we were rebelling, we were resisting, we were uprising. They only descend from slavery. But she always said, it's fucked up as it is to assert that you can descend from horrendous atrocities. You can descend. We endured slavery. We didn't descend from no motherfucking slavery. We descended from Africans. We descended from ancestors. We descended from people who thrived and survived and endured and adapted. So, as fucked up as that is, she said, well, I always at least thought they called themselves Africans, descendants of slavery. And she found out, I don't know who came up and told her, which one of y'all snitch came up and told my wife, it's American descendants of slavery. And she collapsed like, oh my God, it can't be. I said, yes. I said, it has to be American descendants of slavery, because if they called it African descendants of slavery, then in their own minds, they're stupid fucks, then they have to include Brazilians, Guyanese, Jamaicans, Haitians, even those black folks up in Nova Scotia, all of black people in Panama, the 1 million plus black Africans in Mexico, right? Because if you're going to be an African descendant of slavery, then you got 2 fucking continents that you tie together. 2 continents that you have to acknowledge. Because the only difference between a Jamaican, a Guyanese brother, a Brazilian brother, a Kentuckian, or a Missourian, the only difference between a black American and a black Bayesian or black Dominican, the only difference between us is a boat stop. Somebody said 3 continents. Okay, 3 continents. To me, I'm a Pan-African, so all 7 continents. Anywhere you find Africans. If it's a brother down there freezing in Antarctica, then he's with us too. But they didn't want that. They didn't want to acknowledge that, because that doesn't fit right with their integrationist, anti-black, anti-African agenda. But what they don't fucking understand is they have to change it to North American. But even if you say North American, like I said, you got Nova Scotian descendants of slavery. And in fact, the Africans in Liberia are descendants of North American slavery. And the black people in Canada, a lot of black folks ran to Canada and didn't come back. And Mexico is North America. But you know, North and South America are Americas. A Brazilian brother is an American. We are United Statesian. It's just the arrogance and racism of the United States to say, well, when you say America, we're default. Like when you say people, we're default. So when you say people, you're saying white people, even though they're the minority. And if you want to talk about non-white people, then you have to say people of color. Because when you just say people, you mean white folks, because they're the standard. So ADOS doesn't work as an ideology, as an analysis, as a point of unity, as a rally cry. It doesn't work at all. But my wife was giving them more credit than they deserve. And so shout out to whoever reached out, because I didn't know she didn't know. Because we talk about ADOS from time to time. We mock them, we make fun of them, we condemn them, we lament their existence and prominence. And all the time we are like ADOS, ADOS, ADOS. And I'm thinking American descendants of, and she's like African descendants of slavery. It's a shitty fucking thing. And then all my ADOS listeners and followers and commenters, the most sincere. Fuck you. It ain't about educate. Certain shit you can't teach. Certain shit you can't teach. Certain shit you just gotta mock, dismiss, and kick in the ass. But I digress. What was I talking about? Kamala. I digress, and I apologize for it. I don't apologize for nothing. I think African people, first of all, we don't comprehend. I think we do, but we don't want to. We don't comprehend what I call the scope of U.S. politics. When I hear black people talk about politics, even those who disagree with me and those who agree with me, there are a lot of black people that I fully agree with them politically. I believe with their position on voting, their position on policy, their position on resistance and subversion. But their conclusions and their understandings. I had just a really smart, brilliant brother say, and here's the rub on that. I had a brilliant brother come to me and say, Kamala ain't done nothing for us in the last 3 years in the White House, and we're going to vote for her. And I'm like, what can a vice president do for you? They don't enforce. They don't legislate. Only thing the vice president does is they can break ties in the Senate, and they can have ceremonies, and they can maybe have a prominent platform. But most vice presidents remain very low key because by and large, they don't want to overshadow the president. Number one. Number two, they don't want to upend or carry any negative baggage from the previous administration. I was saying all the time, go back and watch my previous show. Kamala Harris been keeping her head down for just this occasion. They want her to come in. Like, I was just out on a walk with my wife through Washington Park, and we saw all these Genocide Joe. And that's all that she's trying to distance herself from that shit. Trinidad is not Africa. Oh, thank you for that. What the fuck is you talking about? Who said Trinidad was Africa? People just be saying shit. I bet he's proud of it. Imagine this dude somewhere, musty, typing that in. Trinidad is Africa. I don't understand. And let me accentuate. Let me punctuate my misunderstanding with a stupid ass comment on top of mine to better demonstrate and articulate the fact that I don't know what the fuck I'm listening to. You could have just said nothing and gave us the impression that you're following along. You're following along. Get a late pass. But I digress. And so he's anti-Kamala. I'm anti-Kamala. But let's say you have a black person who's pro-Kamala. A black person who is concluded that Kamala is the best candidate, right? And they are open to criticisms and critiques of Kamala. And then they see the first anti-Kamala thing they come across is Kamala ain't done nothing for us. And let's say this person, like myself, has a bachelor's degree in political science and graduated with honors. Don't mean shit, but it is. And they look at this person and say, Kamala is like, well, Kamala's opposition does not have a grasp of the nature of U.S. politics. So why would I listen to your condemnation of Kamala if your critique and it is embedded in a lack of understanding of the role and position and power and authority that the vice presidents hold? And this is what's so bad. When you talk about she ain't done nothing for black people in this, there are so many legitimate criticisms. There are so many legitimate condemnations. There is so much. There is a overflowing cup of horrendous positions that Kamala and the Biden administration, his appointees, have that you could target. But when you level baseless considered, and then people think I'm defending. Because the dude was like, Kamala ain't done nothing from us. And I'm like, what can a vice president do? And you think back to the Bush administration, Bush 2.0, with Dick Cheney. And everybody was like, Dick Cheney's the real president. And then they had that other guy, Bush's brain. Who? I'm sorry. I can't remember his name. Oh, Karl Rove. I didn't look it up. That my memory kicked in. This caffeinated green tea help you every time. No votes. See, more people saying dumb shit in the comments. No votes matter. That's some dumb shit. I'm sorry, Sith Lord Prince. I see you here all the time. I appreciate you being a listener and a member of the community, but you just typed in some dumb shit. That's some dumb shit. It's factually untrue, but I digress. So, Karl Rove and Dick Cheney White House. And for parties, even if that's the case, the political parties do not want a vice president to seem too prominent, too powerful, too influential. It's just the nature of the political system. So if we're going to critique Kamala, we can go off of her record as a prosecutor. We can go off of her affiliations, stances. She has articulated particular policies that she supports. And I think that rhetoric, I've seen it. People talk about Kamala ain't going to save us. Kamala ain't going to give us reparations. And they keep playing that thing where, here's the thing about that. The president can't give us reparations. If I was elected president, I couldn't give black people reparations. The president doesn't control the treasury. The president doesn't, that would be a law or a policy. The president is executive, execute, enforcement. So crying to the president or saying you're not voting for a president based on reparations only demonstrates your lack of understanding. Now, if you said I'm not going to support any congressman or senator that's not reparations, I say boom. And the position of a president on reparation is all but irrelevant. And any president coming to you promising you reparations is just another hustler and a liar. That's Congress. So all I'm saying is, as we go through yet another political cycle, we don't understand the division of power, the role of the various branches of government. We don't understand, we don't take time to go and look at the platform and policies of either of the parties and how consistently or inconsistently. We don't go look at the funders. Voting does matter. And only people say that out of ignorance. Voting can impact your life, positive or negative. If you are eligible and in a position to vote in the United States, you should vote in every single fucking election. You should comprehend the scope of politics. What is the scope of politics within electoral politics in the representative democracy in the American Republic? What is it able to do? And what is it not able to do? Regardless of where you fall down. And I don't really understand. And what's really fucked up is many of people like me, I was born well after Jim Crow. Most of the people I know and I'm around are enjoying a status that they didn't fight for, that they were born into. And we get mad reckless and mad disrespectful of the people. You know, I just had my wife, our lawyer, really good lawyer, but he's shutting down his practice, so I'd recommend him, this brother, to anybody in Chicago. One of the best lawyers in Chicago, you know. But he came over and he saw this staff that was sent to me by Pete O'Neill. And I was telling him about it. Pete O'Neill sent this to me and sent me one of the most precious items. I have it on display. You walk in my house, it's right there. One of my prized possessions. That will be in the Kenyatta family for generations. But I digress. And he asked about that looks familiar because he's on his way. I think he's about to travel to Rwanda, back to the motherland. So he's all things African. He's very interested in. Always. But anyway, I digress. And what was I saying? I completely lost my point. Just thinking about, Pete O'Neill. And he was asking me about Pete O'Neill. And he was like, there was a book and a documentary, Panther in Africa. You mean that dude? And I'm like, yeah, that dude. And he was like, wow, that's impressive. And I'm like, isn't it? And you look at people who are still with us. I just moderated a panel on solitary confinement, and they were talking about political prisoners. Every time I learn about one political prisoner, there's a half a dozen others. And I met a brother who was incarcerated at 14, given an indeterminate life, natural life sentence. At 14 years old, they locked this young brother up for life. And they had him in prison from 14 to 42. And he spent decades in solitary confinement. And there was a fucking law that was legislated saying you cannot sentence a minor to indeterminate sentences. So he got out. That fucking vote matters to him. In the last election cycle, state election cycle, this is the second. The one before last, there was a moratorium on the death penalty. So the state of Illinois is no longer murdering African people. Legally and justifiably murdering African people. Talking about votes don't matter. I'm not saying. And the problem is the only reason you could think that votes don't matter is that you in your own mind are expecting shit from this government that this government is not in a position to give you. The government can't give you justice. It ain't got it. We really have a blood from turnip attitude about the U.S. government. We have a blood from turnip attitude. When this system has always played, it ain't never been about love. And I don't even like the concept of lesser evil. This shit is evil across the fucking board. But that's not relevant. The evil of the system is not relevant. Is this a lesser evil or greater evil? As African people, our interests are here. We understand what our interests are, our objectives, our goals, our individual aspirations, and our collective goals. Our standing, our status, our position, it's all right here. It exists, and the U.S. political system is here. This should exist independently of this. Regardless of what the fuck this do, this should be going. And at the time that this hand, our hand, can reach into this motherfucker and pull some shit out, or reach in front of this motherfucker and stop it, or push it back, or push it in any direction we need it to go, it don't fucking matter if it's great. It's all fucking evil, and it will always be evil. This land was founded on genocide. The Constitution was written by genociders, enslavers, rapists, murderers. And every year we act like we're disappointed. How the fuck can you be disappointed in the U.S. political system? Why would you ever have any type of level of consideration for this system where it can disappoint you? Now, I can be disappointed because I'm like, man, we were in a position to manipulate the tax code and switch the tax burden from working class people and switch the tax burden over to wealthy people. There was a real estate transaction tax that was going to tax real estate deals that were over 1.5 million and high. So people, and it was mainly targeting property speculators and investors, because a lot of real estate is being bought up by these venture capitalist firms that are treating property like a commodity, treating your home like a stock, something to be bought, sold, consolidated, broken. And so instead of treating it like a resident, people need to exist. And there was a good policy that was written on the local level to abide that. Was it going to stop it? No. Was it going to end capitalism? No. But the end of capitalism is not on the fucking ballot. Revolution, freedom, justice is never on the fucking ballot. But there are things that speak to our and serve our interests that appear on the ballot. And we don't show up for that shit. Because we got people who vote until the white man say, do you want some freedom? Yes or no? I'll go vote for Miss Freedom. Even white people didn't vote for their fucking freedoms. Go look at white people, the white majority. They had to go in the streets to get justice. Even white people. From Boston Tea Party to the campus protest, Kent State. We be expecting shit from the political system that even white people don't get. There was another vote where the flat tax would be repealed and there would be a progressive tax and change the upper, and that way the tax burden, again, we could vote to shift the tax burden. Now that shit's not sexy. Ain't gonna be no movie. You ain't gonna have no poster on your wall about the bureaucrat that shifted the tax burden. But these, as you live in a society, as you navigate a society, even if you're in a state, the only people I say are justified in not engaging in the political system are people who are engaged in open insurgency, open armed rebellion. That's it. But if you're engaged in the fucking economy, how can you not be engaged in the economy? But I'm sick of saying this because people think they so fucking cold-blooded. Let me tell you, not Democrat is not an ideology. And it just frustrates me where I know several African people, you can have the most intelligent, enlightening exchanges and discussions and conversations about a myriad of issues related to African people. And the moment you bring up electoral politics, representative democracy, they just fall apart. I ain't vote, they ain't read nothing, they won't do nothing for me. While we got communities we don't even know. The Hmong community, I have a homeboy that was elected to the city council. And he's in there setting up his office, putting a photo of his wife and kids on his desk. And they walk in and he's like, this is a representative of the Hmong community. He was like, the who? He said, the Hmong community. He's like, the fuck? I've lived here all my life. What the fuck is the Hmong community? He's like, well, now that you have a position of authority, you're about to find out. And they didn't come in there and say, save us. They didn't come in there and say, give us reparations. They came in there and say, listen, within the scope of your position, these are our interests, these are our values, these are our goals. How can we help you and how can you help us? And he was like, I lived in the city, and he's like, I got to know all about their businesses, all the shit they had going on. The Chinese fucking government, going all the way back. I remember the Clinton administration. The Chinese government was sending Confucius nuns and sending all these unofficial diplomats over. The Chinese government invests millions of dollars to influence U.S. politics. The Chinese government don't need freedom, liberation, or shit from the U.S. But you'd be a goddamn fool to be in a position to influence the empire's politics, and you just give it up. Not only should you fucking vote, you should engage candidates, you should run candidates, you should work on campaigns of candidates, you should educate the Black community in basic civics. You should educate your community on the politics, the goals of our enemies. You should have a plan for the blue state, red state. There should already be a plan of action and strategy and tactics for our opposition to Kamala and our opposition to Trump. We should understand and distinguish these people out here talking about ain't no difference between Democrats or Republicans or willfully ignorant and intellectually lazy. Have somebody tell me, oh, they ain't fighting for real. They just pretending to fight for our privilege. And we sit and watch these crackers fight 2 world wars, 100 world wars. We see them hitting each other over the head with hammers. We saw a bunch of white people run into the state building and smear feces on the wall. And we sitting here talking about, oh, they're all the same. And when they talk about World War or Civil War, when white folks say Civil War, I promise you, they not thinking about us. It's going to take a civil war to retake America. Because let me tell you, they don't even see us as human. These racists, they see us as puppets. Even when Malcolm X and Martin Luther King was out here fighting for our rights, they said the communists are controlling them. The communists, Martin Luther King is a communist plant. When we were out here like, fuck Hillary, oh, you're a Russian. No, you're a Russian bot. I was accused of being a fake Russian bot. I always like, where the fuck is my check, Russia? As many times as I was called a Russian bot for just saying, here is Hillary Clinton's political history. She started off as a right-wing conservative. And when she moved to the Democrat, she did not adopt or embrace progressive or liberal values. Her and her husband, through the Democratic Leadership Committee, brought more conservatism to the Democrats. And they brought Heritage Foundation, NAFTA, CAFCA, the Omnibus Crime Bill. All I was doing was articulating this woman's public recorded history. I wasn't talking all that, oh, the Clinton crime family, all that fucking empty rhetoric. I'm like when she was in the State Department, she's imperialist and this and that. And people are like, oh, you must support Trump. I hate Trump more than I hate Hillary. I hate Trump more than let me tell you something. But I digress. All I'm saying is, when it comes to politics, African people, 3 words, CDC, you have to be cold, distant, and calculated. You have to look at this and say, what do I need to oppose? What can I extract? What can I disrupt? What can I redirect? What priorities? What vulnerabilities does this system have that I can exploit? What resources can I extract? It's just that simple. And then you go about doing it. And if you attempt to extract, harm, reduce, and you attempt it and you fail, then you reassess what you did right and wrong, and then you re-engage. Voting has impacts. Voting has impacts. But revolution is never on the ballot. The stuff in this hand is all on us. We ain't to blame, but we are responsible. And whatever's not on the ballot, don't ask. Don't seek. Don't desire. Don't want for it. You know? And what is on the ballot, what can be done, then do that shit to death. It's that fucking simple. And the only reason you can be disillusioned about U.S. politics, if you got hope and faith and desires tied to this system that you got no fucking business having them tied to it. None. This system has always had various factions that conflict, that cooperate. J.D. Vance, Trump's vice president, is on record calling him an idiot, a fool, corrupt, and he's saying, I hate Trump's guts. Biden is a fucking racist. Biden is a dyed-in-the-rule fucking racist. He was lived a racist, and that mother old fuck gonna die a racist. But he was vice president to a colored, and he had chose a colored vice president when he took office. Now, how can a racist, old school racist, be in that position? Because his interest and objectives were served by sandwiching his own political legacy between Obama and Kamala. And I promise you, if he saw Obama or Kamala coming in 1987, he would have crossed the street to avoid him. Now he's hugged up with him, all booed and having them over to, because he's cold and calculating. His feelings ain't in it. Now there's a lot of places. I'm not one of these people. I'm not a Vulcan. You watch my show. Emotion is something I greatly value. I read The Community of Self. Shout out to Dr. Naeem Akbar. I know he probably still mad at me because I did a harsh review of his book. But the thing is, he just focused on the things I said bad about it. The Community of Self, one of the most influential books in my life, and taught me how to navigate hostile terrain. But anyway, I digress. I value emotions. Emotions are valuable. They're healthy. They're necessary. But the worst thing, the only way there's no such thing as a bad emotion either. I got as much hate as I do love. If you don't know how to hate, you ain't got no real love. You've never experienced true love if you can't experience hate. So I don't see it as a negative or positive emotion. I see appropriate or inappropriate emotion. If you love somebody that hates you, that's inappropriate. If somebody hates you, hate them back. That's healthy. See? So when it comes to politics, it's unworthy of our emotions. First of all, it's way too fucking consistent. As evil as this system is, it's also as consistent. Morality in politics, the only morality in the politics is victory. But y'all don't hear me though. And I have to get y'all through this before I can get y'all, because if you don't understand this, you always thinking in this dichotomy, oh, he must be different. I have people every week, anytime I speak on politics, people call me a conservative. They call me a Democrat. People call me like some idiots on here talking about, oh, he's vote blue no matter who, because you don't comprehend. You don't even understand. You can't think beyond it. It's not me. What I'm saying is what your inability to comprehend, to think outside of Democrat. Politics fall between Democrat and Republican. And they don't even listen to your statement. They listen for keywords. He said something that sounds anti-Biden. He said something. They just listen for keywords. They don't listen to the totality because they are not political thinkers. You can be a cultural thinker. You can even be an academic thinker. But politics. But politics is requires a whole different perspective. But I digress. What can you do? People are willfully ignorant. And as Kwame Ture said, the American capitalist system not only makes people stupid, it makes them arrogant in their stupidity. The United States is an oligarchy with a duopoly. But the United States has embedded within it certain vulnerabilities to the will and movement of the people. Politics also occurs at different levels, and the symbols and ceremony and pop of politics are as important as the meat and potato bureaucracy and policy of politics. African people at times in our history have been master strategists. We've been able to move, impact, and manipulate this system to our advantage over generations. And now, instead of building on what our ancestors secured for us, we disrespect our ancestors' sacrifice and struggle. At the same time, we can't even hold on to the shit they gave us, let alone gain more. I didn't even mean to go all into it. But I find it hard to discuss politics because people are not oriented properly to truly discuss politics. Stop this blood from a stone. I would like to see an African say, listen, this is what we have the potential to extract from the political system. These other things are not even possible. But these are the things that are within the scope of U.S. political arena that African people are positioned to influence, impact, extract, and then only deal with that. Anything, when somebody brings up politics and they're talking unrealistic shit, say, hey, that's not for politics. That's for community organizing, grassroots organizing, Pan-African resistance and uprising, and that's for that. You can't get that here. I know this isn't going to make sense because of these Walmart hypermarts, but there used to be a time you don't go to the grocery store for an oil change. And many of these people, they're like, fuck voting. They're jaded. You ever seen a jaded lover? They love America. All these people that talk that slick shit, they love America. Don't let it. That's a patriotic motherfucker right there. All you black people that talk, yeah, don't vote, it don't mean nothing. Y'all hurt. You hurt. In America, I ain't got no love for this government. I'm like, so when it comes, I feel about the U.S. government the way Snoop Dogg feel about our black women. No love. Ain't no love. I'm a straight pimp it. And the moment it can't do nothing for me, then I set it aside and set it down. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let's get to the topic at hand. Well, listen, if you really, shit, I'm on topic, really. I'm on topic. I'm on mission. But anyway, today's show is Race First, the essential selfishness of survival. My comprehension of Race First comes from Marcus Mosiah Garvey and was expanded by the late great Tony Martin. And of course, John Henry Clark stated that African people need to develop the essential selfishness of survival. The reason why I'm talking about race first, and I think that we really misunderstand race first, because even though he said race first, I think a lot of black people hear race only. But when you call something first, that suggests that there is a succession. You don't call something first unless there is a second. Something can't be first on its own. I think that's clear. So when you say race first, you have to then say what's second. Or is there a third or fourth or fifth? And there absolutely is. And the reason why we are race first, and this concept was given to us over a century ago, and I don't think we comprehended it or mastered it. But race should be the cornerstone of all considerations. And it's not a negative thing. It's not an exclusive thing. It's not anti any other race, even though it is. It should be, and it's necessary. But there's some reality about being an African, right? There's some reality. Bobby E. Rice stated that decades ago that anti-blackness is the world's only universal ideology. Anti-blackness. Every continent outside of Africa has done coordinated, sustained targeting and exploitation of Africa. And I know many of us, we're very familiar with the British Empire and the Spanish and the Portuguese and the French and the Germans. We're real clear on that shit. But y'all get mad fucking, what do I call it? Y'all get mad fucking colorblind, confused when we talk about the Arab onslaught in Africa, the Arab colonization and occupation of Africa. And y'all even look at many of these Arab nationalists, these Islamic invaders, as heroes, as welcomed brothers and sisters, and even pray to their God. But you go to India, you go look at the economy. Look who dominates the economy in Uganda, Zimbabwe. I mean, just look at Gandhi's activist Gandhi's law practice in South Africa, Tanzania. Or go look at Akon in Senegal and the Chinese or the Japanese auto industry in Ethiopia. When a person who is not an African, who is not black, encounters a black person, that's the first thing they see. And what we've also observed is that other victims of colonization, other victims of imperialism, other victims of Western aggression, colonization, when that falls upon them, we find that, see, this is the good shit. Let me just go back to that. Save. Who the fuck talks about being saved by the government? Like I said, what does Snoop Dogg say about saving? The word save and government shouldn't be in the same fucking sentence. No, it's not going to save you. Can it get the lead out the fucking gasoline? Can it inspect the fucking food products? Can it fucking regulate? You know, what the fuck? Can it fund healthcare? Can it give grants for education? I don't know what the fuck y'all be expecting from bureaucracy. It's boring. Government. The government ain't gonna save you. Who the fuck asked it to? The government has never, where in the fucking Constitution does it even say it's gonna save you? And go find a state constitution. Go find a proclamation. These people, the government ain't gonna save you. The government, who the fuck says it was? Like that's the point. If you ever expect I can see how you could be like, fuck politics, fuck voting, because the government, like, if you think the government is going to save you or should save you, that's your dysfunction, not the government's. I don't want a government. In fact, I don't want any fucking saviors. The government should bow to us. The government should submit to us. The government should be destroyed by. There's a lot of relationships and exchanges we should have with the government. But being saved or saving ain't one of those contacts or relationships. Jesus Christ. That's Christ. Anyway, race first. African people. I think one of the best books. My son just came and asked me for a book. It's like, Dad, I want to get a better grasp of Black history. And I started to say this. I didn't say it, but what I should have said, man, I fumbled this one. I should have said, Black history, African history are the deleted pages of world history. Shout out to John Henry Clark. Fuck, I should have said that. But my son came downstairs and was like, Dad, and he had a book. He had the Myth of Black Progress in his hand, and he'd been on my bookshelf. And his mother had given him some books. And he was like, Dad, I want to be better versed in Black history, because of course he goes to public school, so he knows all about the Khyber Pass. He knows what a fucking peninsula is. I mean, he did a whole lesson on the Roman Empire, the various Caesars. So, they teaching them white folks business. And he's like, I don't feel like I hear you talk, and we have people over and y'all talk all this Black stuff. I want to know how to politic and build with my, groundings with my brothers. So anyway, I pulled out for history. First, I was going to give him Before the Mayflower. That's what I was going to give him. And I actually ran into Ron Bennett. I had just moved to Chicago, and we were renting this really shitty, mouse-infested little grimy apartment in Hyde Park. And I was walking out of Hyde Park Produce, and LeBron Bennett was coming in. I'm like, oh shit. I do this every fucking time. I always fumble. I said, oh shit. I didn't say oh shit because he was an elder at that time. I said, you're LeBron Bennett. I said, "You're Lerone Bennett." He said, "Indeed I am. How you doing, brother?" Like he was used to people coming up to him. But anyway, I was gonna give him that book, but then I just started to reread. I got through like the first 2 or 3 chapters of that book a year or two ago. Because I read it when I was his age, like 15. That's around the time I was like, I'm gonna give him that. But then I thought, I'm gonna go hard in the paint, leave you stanking. Fuck you thinking? I'm gonna go hard in the paint. So I gave him The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. I'm like, here's some Black history. Bam! And I don't know. I could have messed up. Maybe he'd be like, I don't want to fuck this shit. This is a horror story. But anyway, I was gonna say Lerone Bennett for Black history as an intro to Black history, but I gave him The Destruction of African Civilization. It could be wrong, but I just hate, and whether I'm wrong or not, it's him. It ain't me. But I really wish I would have used that Dr. Clark line on him. But all I'm saying is, in that book, the line that sticks with me, that I wake up to, that Chancellor Williams said, if you've been watching the BroDiallo show continuously, he said that white people are our implacable foe, our eternal bitter enemy. White people are our implacable foe and our eternal bitter enemy. And if you read that book, that white box includes some people y'all like to pretend, like the so-called brown people, the conquistadors. Y'all like to act like they're somehow not white. The Spaniards and Portuguese that y'all somehow like to pretend ain't white. The Arabs, Persians that y'all somehow like to pretend are soul brothers. So his white definition of white is much broader than y'all's. But he said that conclusion, that these people are our implacable foe and our eternal bitter enemy, is not the rantings of a wide-eyed militant. It is a conclusion drawn after a sincere study of over 2,000 years of African history. Since these people mutated from us, since they mutated and identified themselves as other than us, it's been predation, exploitation, nonstop, relentless. And our particular attack is based on, if they attacked us because of our faith, then it would be faith first. If our assault was a byproduct of our height, then it would be height first. If it was a result or rooted in our gender or sexuality, then it would be gender and or sexuality first. Now, there are compounding oppressions because the systems and institutions that enslave, indoctrinate, that inculcate, and we integrate into, they're also sexist, homophobic, classist. They're all that. But as you engage in those other structures, as you construct your ideology, construct your organizations, chart your path of resistance, you have to have a racial consideration. That means your main and first and primary priority: educate, uplift, radicalize, unite, organize, connect with, embrace African people, Black people first and foremost. I don't say you can't work, coordinate. Y'all see me on here, I give shout outs to animal and earth liberation fronts, the white left, bless their hearts. I just, man, whatever battery I can put in the back of the white left, I do it. I've been called out to speak to some white leftist groups. I have no issue. I think white left is an asset to the world, and go. The white anarchist, white socialist, go. White communist, not a. But I'm saying, before even I can have a discussion with you, I have to know where they stand. If we had a worry first attitude and someone came to us and said, well, we're suffering, then like, oh, great. What is your relationship in contact with the African people within your control, within your sphere? You want me to talk about how the U.S. empire is attacking you, but your Janjaweed militia, you're Islamicist, you're Latin American. What's the condition? Before you talk about Black and brown unity, what is the status of African people within the countries that are defined as Latin, Hispanic, South America, Central American? What is the status of African people? Everybody was talking about the Ukraine. We saw them throwing African migrant students off the train. And we find that non-African people, non-Black people, even as they are being invaded and bombed and genocided themselves, always make time for racism. They're never too in a hurry. They're never too pressed for racism. So a race-first conclusion, any non-African person that has an issue with an African person being race-first is hostile to African people and ignorant of African history. It is a pathological denial of history, and it is a pathological rejection of reality for any African to have anything other than a race-first ideology, stance, priority. After race comes class. And one thing that race first does is it is an internal check. Because there are a lot of Black people who have demonstrated throughout their lives and their careers, their public careers, nothing but utter contempt for African people. We have a lot of prominent Black people that are race last or race irrelevant. And if you're race last or race irrelevant, we have a lot of African people that are Islam first, that are money first, that are gang set first. Because if I'm race first, before I engage in any behaviors on a personal or community level, I have to say, how does this impact my community? How does this impact my race? How will this reverberate? How will this position? How will this behavior reverberate throughout my community? You can be race first with nobody else, no other body but Black people around. Now, see, here's somebody, you way out ahead of me. When did I ever say that? When did that? Who said that? But I guess people want to argue with who they want to argue with. They hear what they want to hear and they argue what they want to argue with. Shoot, if you want to take time to watch somebody, if you want to see, you see me, but you ain't watching me. You're hearing me, but you're not listening to me. But let's I'm gonna just have to keep going. Race first position will inform us of our obligation, our priorities, our standards, our values. And even if you're a Black person that want to go play footsies with everybody, you want to go and be a martyr for some other race, you want to be, even then, as a race first person that brings empowerment, stability, and strength to our community, then you can go and be a better asset to whatever other group. If you want to say, hey, feminists and women's rights, gay rights, free Palestine, if you take a race first positions and you hold race first standards, when you do go over there to be an asset, an ally, or a martyr for other people's struggles and causes, or to expand our particular struggle or unite our struggle and causes with others, you are coming from a position of stability. Who the fuck wants a dysfunctional ally? I'll ask you again. Yeah, the fuck yeah, I asked how Black people are treated in their country. Are you crazy? Well, it don't matter. That's like you gonna join an organization and you're gonna go and ally with somebody, and in their group they abuse women. They're a sexist, patriarchal organization. Well, I'm gonna unite with you, but before I unite with you, I'm gonna ask you how you treat women. Fuck yeah. I'm gonna ask what's the status of Africans. If somebody come here from the Dominican Republic and says, yes, well, immigrants' rights, I'm like, absolutely. What about the status? The status of Africans is they are discriminated, they are repressed, and I take a stand. I'm allied with the Africans in Dominican. I see the Dominican Republic and its atrocities against and discrimination and abuse against the Haitian people. So you better be honest about it. Fuck yeah, you ask that question. What is the status of African people and what is your position on their status? We the only fucking people. Like some dude just told me, oh, it's not transactional. I was like, listen, if we gonna fucking bleed and suck tear gas for any fucking cause, we gotta know what we putting in and what we getting out. I mean, that's just fuck, you go to rob a bank. Let's go out here and hit a lick. And you ain't gonna ask, what's my cut? Y'all wow. This servitude shit, is it bred into us? What the fuck? We so content to be served? Fuck yes. I want to know your attitude on African people before I ally with you, even if you're going through whatever horrendous thing you're going through. I didn't say you could say. But every Latino that I work with acknowledges the long history, the conquistador. First of all, they acknowledge, yeah, we are the fucking conquistador. The same genocide, discrimination, abuse, and enslavement that happened to African peoples here, my ancestors did it south of the border. So I shouldn't just come here and expect acceptance and a free pass. I should be able to articulate and demonstrate that history and articulate and demonstrate my rejection of that history and my solidarity with oppressed people everywhere. As my wife, as Dr. Mingo says, you can't cry freedom with your foot on somebody else's neck. So just as a man, if I go into an organization and I realize that I was born into and indoctrinated into a sexist, patriarchal, misogynistic society, and I'm working with sisters, and sisters have every fucking right to be like, yo, what's your stance on women? You mean to tell me I gotta explain to you my position on women before we can unite against Palestine or genocide? Well, I'm here for economics. Fuck no, yeah, everything or nothing. Fuck you. Don't unite with somebody that got a fucking nah. That's how so many people have fought and bled and sacrificed for movements, and on the other side, they run into another, smacked in the face with another form of oppression. So yes, it is appropriate and necessary for African people to put everybody on fucking call. I don't give a fuck. Everybody's on call. Everybody has to articulate. Everybody has to acknowledge their people's collective assault and demonstrate and articulate to us what the fuck they intend to do about it. And if you too much in a hurry, oh, I don't care how they treat black people in the Arab world. I don't care that they trafficking, enslaving, raping African people throughout the Arab and Islamic world. I don't care that the UAE, Dubai, the Janjaweed militias, Islamicists are slaughtering Africans wholesale and driving and causing the greatest man-made famine in the Horn of Africa. I ain't gotta ask about that. Free Palestine. Fuck out of here. Anybody that tells you you can't articulate your pain, you can't articulate your concerns, that is not solidarity, that is servitude. And so many Africans confuse solidarity with servitude. If your positions, your values, your goals, your agendas, your history can't be fully asserted as you fight for another cause or fight for a cause, then you are in servitude, not solidarity. In solidarity, everybody bring all their shit. Everybody put everything on the table, and then we determine how best to divvy it up. It don't just, you get the whole shit back while all my shit's on the fucking table. Fuck that. What is wrong with y'all? That's why we need to start teaching race first. That's the fucking problem. That's the fucking problem. 2 African neuroscientists did research and found that white kids develop racist positions and attitudes before they learn to talk. If they can walk, they can identify the distinctions of races and view themselves as centered, priority. Racism comes before before they can even utter the N-word. They understand who is and who ain't. Why the hell aren't African children learning resistance and black liberationist ideology from the womb. When my kids first ran into racism, they were like, oh, there it goes. From day one. You're born into a hostile environment. You're governed. You're oppressed. You're dominated by a hostile, irrational, violent, vicious people. And they're going to assault you on all fronts. They're going to contaminate your food. They're going to contaminate your air. They're going to propagandize you. Even when they're trying to love you, they're killing you. Day one, African child. And you have to decide, are you going to resist? Are you going to submit? Or are you going to join them? There's no neutrality. There's no neutral position. There's resistance, there's submission, and co-optation. How the fuck do we not have a radical resistance and let me tell you something. Don't be ashamed of hostility. Don't be ashamed of hatred. Don't be ashamed of distrust. It's like, hey, we want solidarity. We want to bring because everybody want African people. Because we bring an air of legitimacy to all resistance movement. Ho Chi Minh. When the Black Panthers came to meet with him, he held up his Garvey, his UNIA card. Malcolm X going places like Indonesia, places we can't even find on a map, and people are like, oh, Malcolm X. I remember when I was a kid, the first person I saw wearing a Steve Biko shirt, and this was during apartheid, was some white boy was wearing a Steve Biko shirt. I didn't even know who Steve Biko was. I'm like, who is this guy? I thought it was like Jimmy Cliff or something. Like, who's that little black man on your shirt? He's like, that's Steve Biko. Everybody wants to be part of our shit. And let me tell you what colonization is. Colonization is when you can't control what comes into and what goes out. There's no gatekeeping. There's no regulation. There was just some Asian dude who made a funny little TikTok, and he was like, black people need to start gatekeeping. People can extract everything. They can extract our legitimacy. They can extract our pain. They can extract our history. They can extract our rhythm. They can extract our artistry. They can extract everything from us. And we feel like we're being unrighteous. We're being wrong, transactional. If we say, hey, what the fuck? You taking all this shit out? What the fuck you putting in? Oh, we about to go have this justice movement. Oh, great. Let's say we win the justice movement. And we get the resources from the oppressor. How that shit getting divvied up? Who gets what? And you trying to get power and relief over here, but in the places you do have power, how do you behave? And we go join with Islamicist organizations. Name an Islamicist organization. Name an Islamicist government that gives any level of consideration to Africans within their jurisdiction. But that ain't what we're here to talk about. What I'm talking about is the essential selfishness of survival. You got to put your fucking oxygen mask on before you can assist the next man. And I don't know if it's Christian indoctrination that got black folks willing and enthusiastic. I don't support martyrdom in the theological sense or in the political sense. Don't sacrifice a motherfucking thing. Sacrifice nothing. It ain't shit for free. Everything we do as a people collectively, internally and externally, should come with terms and conditions. And you telling me I can't even ask questions. You expecting me to bleed. You expecting me to give time, talent, and resources, and I can't ask fucking questions? Don't be a part of nothing you can't ask questions. I don't care if it's a religion or an organization or a community or an educational program or an intimate relationship. Don't be a part of nothing that don't allow you to ask questions, that makes you feel wrong or that you're being inappropriate for asking questions. Race first, class second. African people should be unapologetically race first, unapologetically liberationist. Anyone who allies with us needs to understand that they have to come with terms and conditions. It'll be even Native Americans. When I lived in Missouri, I was going out to hey, to the Lakotas. I was working on the Free Leonard Peltier campaign. And every opportunity I got, I had to remind them folks, y'all enslaved us. And y'all didn't want to remember the Cherokee told the black Cherokee that they ain't entitled to none of the concessions from the federal government. They kicked the black people out. Native Americans have a history of both enslavement of Africans and anti-black identities, and even every single identified nation in First Nation fought on the side of the Confederacy to sustain the system of enslavement. And even during the Trail of Tears, them Native Americans, as they were being genocided, were forcing their African slaves to carry their satchels. We black people, I got Indian good hair. I got Indian in my family. Guess what? You got that Indian blood the same way you got that white blood through enslavement and rape. And I can't bring that up. And you won't find throughout my activism and throughout my history where I have not had solidarity with the plight of the First Nations and the First Peoples, up into the water protectors. And I was on in Jersey with First Nations people throughout Jerseys, and they had those shooting, and they were teaching me how to shoot bow and arrows and shotguns. And sitting in there, and they smoked this tobacco. Oh my goodness, I can taste it now. This tobacco, they roll these tobacco leaves and smoke them. And I ain't gonna talk about my people struggle with them as I struggle with them. If you ever feel uncomfortable talking about the struggles and plight and interest and values of African people, then you shouldn't be in that space. You should not be in that space. Calmly and peacefully excuse yourself. And people gotta know. If we want African people aligned with us, we gotta articulate and account for our past and ongoing hostilities and abuses against African people. It's at the fore. That's the basic requirement. Anyway, I'm gonna open up for Q&A. I can't even get to class and ideology. But race is not first. If you only do race and you leave out class, you live whatever you construct vulnerable. Our struggles need to be a working class struggles. African people should have hostility and distrust to Africans who are of the investor class, of the elite class. We should not be celebrating black billionaires. What do I say? Billionaires are economic tumors. When you see that tumors in the body are unregulated growth. Unregulated growth will eventually kill the host. So when you have someone accumulating and hoarding so much wealth, it causes such an imbalance. And not just economic imbalance, but you'll find societies. There was a really good book that was really popular about a decade ago talking about the spirit level. And they said economic imbalance is even more disruptive to society than across the board economic poverty. You're better off having a society where everyone is of modest or meager means than have a society where everybody is modest, meager, and with the super wealth. And then ideology. So you got a brother or a sister, race first. You got a brother and sisters from the working, poor classes, the wretched of the earth. And then you just have to say, what's your ideology? Because there's a lot of black, poor, and working class people with capitalist, fascist, reactionary, complacent ideologies. And passive black people need to be called out too. The go alone, get one. I'm just trying to get mine. Individualism. So revolutionary Pan-Africanism, it's got to be their politics and their agenda. Socialism got to be their economics. Free to land, ecology, respect for living creatures and living systems, ecological goals, restoring the planet's biosystems and ecosystems, balance. They got to hold that shit. So what's the point of getting free of Europeans and we go set up African industrial capitalist military infrastructure and complex? And we need to come back. African people, if you're in an organization or around individuals that make you feel compromised or ashamed for being race first, who don't comprehend and adhere to a race first, move on. Dr. Clark told us it is better to march into hell by yourself and then into heaven with a bunch of fools. Anyway, I'm gonna open this up. Y'all wild. So you want to come and explain to me how we shouldn't ask a people with a history of abuse against our race what their position is before we link with them? I mean, you can't get hired to flip burgers without telling McDonald's what your history is. But I'm gonna unite with you in revolution. Okay, here we go. Ready Revolution 1. Clever name. Ask a question. BroDiallo, can you talk about your first analysis as it applies to labor unions? I'm currently a paid elected union organizer. It seems white members keep selling out all of us. Yeah, right. Labor unions have always been tinged and infused with racism. At the time, Black African people were excluded from many prominent labor unions. And when the white working class would try to organize against the ownership and capitalist class, they would bring in African people as scabs to take their jobs. We were the original, the black jobs. The black jobs were jobs we took from like taking jobs. So like black people, like Dr. Fubar out here complaining about them people coming to take our jobs. The same complaint was living. Nobody ever takes the jobs. But yes, from their inception. No, and let me not lie. The first concept of a labor union, that the Wobblies, the big union, the anarcho-syndicalist unions were not racist. But those unions never took prominence because they were too much of a threat to the capitalist system. So those leaders, the Wobblies, the anarcho-syndicalists, they were assassinated, they were kicked out of the country, they were incarcerated. Eugene Debs and all of them. So the first labor unions were anarchist and socialist. Those unions never took hold in the United States. The United States went on an internalized warfare against white folks. But the unions that eventually got integrated into the system were, from their inceptions, the AFL, the CIO, and all them groups, they were racist. And black people were looked at as outsiders who were unworthy, who were taking jobs from real Americans. Just as we say about other people, the same thing was said about us. And it was illegitimate then and it's illegitimate now. Black jobs, white jobs, bullshit. So the original intent and goal of labor unions was not to secure benefits, time off, job security, and wages. The goal of the labor union under the anarcho-syndicalists was to take the means of production. Unions initially existed to displace the owners, to displace the investors, to displace and take the means of production. Until unions become radicalized, anything you integrate into this system is going to take on the characteristics of the system. So unions are racist, they're capitalist, they're hierarchical, they're sexist and discriminatory because that's the system and environment they move into. So yeah, that is the true. One thing that I think would help with that or help to abate that, as when I was in a union, when I was a member of the 1199 union, proud union member, I'm very much pro-union even to this day, was educating workers on labor history. The United States has the most radical and violent labor history of all other industrialized nations. And when you start to educate people about the true purpose and the true history of unions, they start to have a better grasp of what they should be doing. So that's one of the best things in terms of teaching, but you can't really educate racism out of that. If as far as just racism, you just have to fuck them up. Mutually assured destruction. That's the best way to deal with a fucking racist. Mutually assured destruction. You've never seen a racist turn into an accommodating, friendly person than when you fucking step to them. Racists are generally cowards and insecure. So to deal with racism, fuck them up. To deal with the lack of true radicalism within the labor movement, educate them and demonstrate. There are movies, there are documentaries, there's labor songs, there's countless books on the radical origins of labor. Teach them about the true meaning and origins of May Day. And I've found that when you teach people who are just complacent thinking, well, the union is all about job security. When you start to teach them the true history of labor unions, it tends to radicalize them. And you should be working to radicalize union members and workers, no matter where they are in the system. All right. Shaka Zulu, welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast.
How you doing, brother?
I'm well. I'm good. How are you?
Man, I went to your channel about 7 months ago, and I'm surprised there's only 4,000 subscribers. How long have you been up here, brother?
Long time, man. 7 years?
And the reason why I say that is because I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, he's supposed to have at least 40,000 subscribers. That's the least. Maybe I need to ask him how long, maybe he just got up here a year ago, 2 years ago. And so, but you're supposed to have more subscribers, but it just represents how people, how they, social media and they want to look at the most ignorant things. And so I came to
don't give me no love. I got people tell me all the time, I'm subscribed to you, I'm a member, and when you go live, I don't get notifications from your page. Now, I'm not a conspiratorial dude, but mad people be complaining to me like, I don't get notifications. I didn't know you went live. Like,
I got the notification, brother. I got the notification. And that's what I'm looking at right here. And so you, hey, look, brother, you so radical. I'm in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way. When I first heard you, my energy, because I consider myself a Pan-Africanist, and so when I heard you, I'm like, hold on. He said you gotta sleep, you gotta eat radical, think radical. Everything that you do, it has to be radical. I'm like, hold up. Okay, I hear what he's talking about. Then you spoke on capitalism. This is where a lot of black folks get lost in the sauce because we don't comprehend and understand how capitalism works, what it is. Karl Marx or Karl Mordecai Levy, whatever his lazy ass name, because he was very lazy, and the Rothschilds got to him, but that's another story. And so I'm listening to you, and when you said that political science, when you went to school for that, that put me 100% in the mind of Steve Coakley. Rest in power, Baba Steve Coakley. And I'm looking. And I put into the chat box, I don't know if you've seen it. I put into the chat box, Steve Coakley passed off the baton to this brother right here. I ain't saying that you're the only brother. It's other brothers and sisters, but people, you know more about political science deeper than not anybody, but most people, the average person, especially from the perspective that you come from. So when you said something about political science, I didn't feel like, okay, that's the white political science. No, you took something from it from an oppressive perspective and something that our people need to hear. So when you said you talk to the liberals, you were like, okay, some people might not understand it. It's the same way when Marcus Garvey was talking to the Ku Klux Klan. Some of our people couldn't understand, why would you talk to them? You crazy. No, he's not. That's diplomacy. It's diplomacy. And so I wanted to tell you that, brother. I'm gonna subscribe. I already subscribed. I want to keep in contact with you. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. My name is Shaka Zulu. I'm not going to promote my book. I'm not going to say the name of my book because that's the wrong thing to do.
Say it. Don't nobody listen to me.
It's the wrong thing to do on other people's platform without telling that, brother.
I'm asking you to. What's the book?
It's called The Dark Side of America's School System. The first one to the mind is the winner. and it's on Amazon. And the first is part 2. Part 1 is called The Dark Side of America's School System. Part 2 is called Dark Side of America's School System. The first one to the mind is the winner. And the master teacher that I come by way of is Dr. Kamal Kambon. I'm out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I came by way of my master teacher. He passed away in December of 2023. Yeah. But Dr. Kamal Kambon is my master teacher. That's who I came by way of. And so, your energy, like you a teacher to me, bro. Like like I ain't no yes man. I don't agree with everything that everybody got something to say. But like I'm 43 years old, and I consider myself a leader. I do volunteer work. I do even for churches or whatever. Even though I don't necessarily believe in it, I subscribe to the Kemetic philosophy and in the African spiritual systems and stuff. But at the same, brother, you are a leader, brother. Like you sick with it, like the radicalness. And I mean it in a good way, like how you be breaking things down. And I'm like, how does he have 4,000 subscribers? How does he have 4,000? Like even politics, I tell people, if you ever run into somebody that say that don't vote, don't hang around that person. I said, it's a reason why they have these voter laws, these voter ID laws. They hung us at the polls. It's a reason for that. I said, you might.
Black people not voting is a desired outcome of both the liberals and the conservatives in this system.
Yes.
They consider that a win. That's one less black person they have to try to manipulate, or it makes their job easier. It just makes no sense.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. And so it's what it is, and that's because I'm a part of a study group club that a BB Tume study group club, and I've been up there for I love joining study group clubs, and we always talk about solutions. And that's what I love about you too, brother. Like you don't talk about it, and so I'm solution based, and I always tell people the solution is within the problem, but you got to know that there's a problem. If I know somebody about to come shoot me, or somebody saying, "Hey, they about to come and shoot this," hey, I'm about to get the hell out the way. I'm about to do, and that's just a smart. But the solution, you just got a lot of people don't acknowledge the problem because all these fake, like when I seen that Donald Trump shooting. Because we got to be critical thinkers. That's big. And so when I seen that Trump thing, I'm looking at, because they like wrestlers. They at each other's throats in front of the cameras, but they playing pinocchles behind the scene. So I seen the game, like the Democrats and the Republicans, they stage that to make him immortalized. And then they bring Kamala Harris in, and then you got all these alphas and these AK sisters. And it's like, wow, how far have we? And you said something about the election cycle. You said every election cycle, this is what they, and I look at it like a roller coaster. It's like same roller coaster ride. If you ain't learned, 9/11 woke me up and Obama woke me up. I been woke up from the religion stuff, but 9/11 and Obama did something to me.
Right.
And it showed me false flag attacks. And I know about the Federal Reserve, and I know about certain things that they're not talking about. And it's something wrong here, and it's the same, and it's the same soup boiled all over again, warmed all over again. It's the same soup warmed all over again, brother.
I appreciate you, bro. I got some other people waiting, but I appreciate.
Okay, I'm gonna stay in contact with you. My name is Shaka Zulu.
Yeah. You know, I want to build with you. Inbox me. I'll send you my contact.
Okay, brother. Thank you.
Inbox me across the ads. All right, bro. Appreciate you. Let me tell y'all something. That Trump, it was false flag crisis actor that the reptilian Illuminati overlords executed in order to take our guns and our liberty away. And they want to bring in the UN troops, and they want to bring communism to America. Fuck the conservatives, right wingers. Give them a taste of their own funky ass medicine. All right, okay, we got about 4 or 5 minutes. We're gonna get through these last two callers. Don, can you turn your camera off? Your voice.
No can do, sir.
Focus on what we're here to focus on. Talk about what we're here to talk about. What
do you mean? How are you? It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah. I've been out here rock and roll, man. I've been out here spitting some stuff.
Man, anyway, so I honestly do have a question. I kind of do want to get you back on ideology. Bro,
Okay.
I'm in the comments too, and I'm trying to discern this, right? And please know that I'm an academic. I got all access to the I know where webs go and all of that. You know what I'm saying? I got all the access and stuff like that. I'm looking up this Afro pessimism. What is that?
Well,
In
Afro pessimism. I mean, you got to go to Jared to ask him. That's Jared's homeboy. But it's basically asserting that I don't really subscribe to it, but it's basically asserting that anti-blackness is at the core of everything, and that we're navigating a world that is intrinsically and institutionally hostile to blackness.
Okay, so
but to me,
okay.
I'm Afro optimistic. I love being black, and for all the attacks and destruction, but it is a legitimate and well supported conclusion and analysis. I just have
I disagree.
With the tactics and the branding.
I disagree. And this is the type of stuff that I fight against in academia, period. Like literally, I'm in kind of like correspondence with some of the people that wrote, right, the California textbook. They got California Academic Senate got this thing called OER, Open Educational Resources, right? So that.
Can I ask you a question, Don?
What's the deal?
You always asking me stuff. Can I ask you something?
What's the deal?
Is anti-blackness essential to not only the identity of whites, but the very self-concepts and functioning of this system?
Yes, but I don't need
stop. You said yes.
Yeah, but I don't need a meta. But I don't need a meta theoretical framework to identify that. That's just
right. But some people do though, because you grasp it.
How? You gonna tell the brothers on the block don't understand?
All I'm saying
is on the block. When you go,
Afro pessimist, you just agreed to the fundamental assertion of Afro pessimism. That anti-blackness is at the core and the root of this system, and the system couldn't even function as it is, and the very identity of whiteness and the very existence of whiteness is predicated on anti-black and othering blackness. I just don't like the branding of it. I would call
that's what I'm saying. It's unnecessary. That's literally what I'm saying. We agreeing. I don't understand how you don't understand. We agreeing. It's unnecessary. It is unnecessary. The brothers on the block is not gonna. When I go and I try to like organize my people, when I sit up here and talk to my immediate community, my mother, my grandmother, my classmates, who the fuck I know? Who the fuck don't understand a meta theoretical framework? If that's what that is, because I just looked through this book and I searched the PDF and I didn't get nothing, but this is a meta theoretical framework. But you know what that is? That is literally double speak.
Listen to me. I took
combat liberalism, y'all.
I took a botany class, right? And there was this PhD in botany that studied ribosomes. And this dude would go into and he also was an expert in plant reproductive system, like plant orgies and plant pornography. He was really into that shit. Now I could sit here and be like, who needs to know how plants get off? We just need to know, don't contaminate and kill them. And I mean, who needs, but just because you deem something just unnecessary or of no use to you, that doesn't speak to whether it is an accurate or inaccurate assessment and analysis.
Well, now, I can demonstrably
had anybody say, well, it's inaccurate. And when I oversimplify or distill it down to its basic points, most people are like, yeah, that's true.
Okay, but the fact that you have to do that is because all you need to say, and this is the problem with a lot of honestly, African academics, period. All you need to say is colonialism. That's as far as you need to go. All of the going past that, maybe to neocolonialism, perhaps, right? But going past that is literally double speak.
Here's the problem with that.
Demonstrably
you gotta go deeper. And because here's the problem with that. You'll have a prominent
but is that going to be effective? Is the brothers on the block going to get that? When I try to talk to my nieces, are your children, honestly, is your kids they understand medicine, they know meta theoretical framework.
brothers on the block should not dictate the depth of analysis. Why would the brothers on the block dictate the depth of analysis? That's like the
y'all don't read the elders, bro. If we can't be interpreted, if we can't
Don, listen. Saying whether or not something is legitimate, whether or not the brothers on the block accept it, it's like the brothers on the block allowing some ivory tower academic determine what Glock or what caliber of pistol to use on the block. Like, those are two different spaces. I don't care whether or not the brothers on the block are going to make use of this. That's like me asking the butcher what kind of tofu I should use. Those are two different spaces. Who gives a fuck if the brothers on the block don't dictate shit? The brothers on the block don't run shit.
I deeply disagree with that. But when I say, I'm not saying we need to get them to accept it, bro. I'm literally saying, like, I'm telling you, I'm literally as going through this is, you know, as quick and possibly as I can, as if I was like trying to present this, bro. Right. And I can't find any way to make, if I was holding a rally and I was up there speaking when we standing on the corner, you know, telling them get out of Cuba, like I do, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to spout out, it is not useful, right? In any mobilizing, if we try to mobilize or organize, like,
before you can define whether or not it's useful, you have to say, is it accurate or inaccurate?
Okay.
Is it accurate or inaccurate?
It's accurate.
So it's an accurate meta-analysis. And yes, they talking about fucking fungibility and all these complex multi-syllable words. But it is accurate, number one. This individual scholar has done this work and constructed this conceptual framework that is, and then made it available to the public at a reasonable price. Now, if you say, hey, this is of no use to me, then you have every right to discourage it. To me, any work that an academic is doing that is accurate and it will be out there, and there might be somebody out there who needs it or don't need it. But my main thing I'm not going to condemn accurate critique, analysis, conclusions, or frameworks. Why would I be mad at that? And whether or not the brothers on the block, I mean, I'm really into 40K lore. I know way too much about the Emperor and the Space Marines and the Necrons and the Tau Empire. Who is that of use to? But it brings me great joy. So, just his breakdown. But as long as, I mean, he could be using his ability to spread the word of Christ and the gospel. You know, he could be doing a lot worse shit with his time. I don't like the branding. I don't like the nomenclature. But the analysis is solid. I just don't think the title really fits his analysis, because even if you read the book, it's not pessimistic.
We agree that at that point right there, we agree. Literally, maybe I'm incorrect in saying or literally conveying my thoughts as rejection. I don't know if I did, it was a misinterpretation of my own thoughts. That labeling, right? That phrase itself, right? I'm not saying that the definition does not reflect material conditions, but I'm saying that phrasing itself is so convoluted to the point of being useless.
But here's the thing.
But the definition definition does describe material conditions.
But do you know how much of Afro-pessimism I had to read? Not just the book, but the articles and listen to interviews.
I looked on the archive. I
had to do so much work before I finally grasp. Look. And to me,
right.
I don't really think that this is made for mass consumption. But you know, I have a homeboy who's a musician. He's a great musician. right? But he listens to the shittiest music I ever heard. When he's listening for himself, he creates some of the most beautiful music for the community and for the struggle. But then when I listen to the shit he listens to, like this complex, it's not even melodious. And he's listening to the complexity and structure of the song. And he appreciates not necessarily the groove or the melody or the tempo. He appreciates, as a trained musician, the level of complexity of the architecture. You ever been on a building tour with like an architectural?
No. I understand. Like, it's, for example, like one of my little hidden gems, as far as like, because I myself am like a little baby musician, grew up in the church and
Right.
stuff like that. But my mom was truly my vocal coach. But like, I actually like my guilty pleasure. I like the Cheetah Girls, because actually, if you listen,
Right.
it was actually very skillful, like vocal stuff going on there. Love Whitney Houston, because what she does with her voice, right, is, but even though she's more mainstream, right, but we could do this all day with like artists and stuff like that. Like, we could probably all throw out underground
Yeah,
artists.
listen, I think you should reach out and say, brother, you need to rebrand and retitle this. Because even reading your work, pessimism is not an outlook or a conclusion that I reach. Even knowing the whole world is against me because of my magnificent melanin and my African phenotype, I cannot associate anything related to pessimism or being discouraged and relate that or tie that to being an African historically.
It feels infantilizing,
Yes,
honestly.
but your analysis is great. But branding and marketing isn't. I got another caller I got to
Okay,
get to.
all right, but
I'll talk to you later.
bro.
You are Afro pessimist. Hassana,
Hi, Diallo.
I appreciate you waiting so long.
Sure.
You're our last caller of the evening. Question, comment, criticism.
Sure. I want to start by saying that you were greatly missed.
Oh, thank you.
I have a question. So a couple of years ago, I went to Cape Town, and I was really horrified by the conditions of Africans living in South Africa. Why do you think the issue of apartheid is somewhat dead? It's no longer a conversation, because I actually think it is alive and well. The second question I have for you is that why do you think that our Black African brothers here in America are falling prey to Islam, especially knowing how detrimental it is?
Okay, the first question is, the South African government averted a revolution. Nelson Mandela betrayed South Africa. He betrayed Winnie Mandela. Desmond Tutu was always a compromised traitor. So in the Tanzanian South African liberation struggle, the radical left, the liberationists, were decapitated from Biko and the Black Consciousness movement. So they did the same thing to scuttle Black revolution in the States. They did the same thing there. They decapitated and COINTELPRO'd the radical revolutionary elements, and then they elevated and made prominent the integrationist and accommodationist elements. And so then they carried out one of the worst things that ever happened. That was an insult to every African who's ever bled on African soil or that bled across the world. They implemented this thing called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Instead of giving land, instead of giving reparations, instead of imposing real consequences for atrocities and genocide and discrimination over decades, they told our enemies and oppressors, come before the world, confess your crime, and all is forgiven. Can you imagine after World War II, instead of having the Nuremberg trials, where they were literally had a hanging post outside the courtroom, and they would level the conviction and march them outside and hang them in the courtyard? Can you imagine instead, after World War II, they had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and Goebbels, Mussolini, and even Hitler himself can come sit before the world and confess their crimes and walk out free men and women? So the fact that the blood debt for South Africa was never paid. So only thing they did was, you ever been to a store and it said under new management?
Yes.
So you go to a store and say, these people in here are rude, the place is dirty, oh, I ain't going there no more. And then you drive by and you see an under new management sign. And you walk in and it's a little cleaner. The people are greeting and being a little bit more polite. That's what they did. They have apartheid, because apartheid is not just physical separation. It's about extraction of wealth. It's about imposition of policy. So apartheid never left. It just came under the ANC. And a few Africans, there were always wealthy Africans under apartheid. They made some concessions, and they went, initially they had, between the African majority, they had a white military state as a buffer. And they replaced the white military state between the white elites and the black masses. They took away the white militarist buffer and they put in a black bureaucratic buffer. And the black bureaucrats are now managing and overseeing the discrimination. It was never liberation. So their revolution was diverted. You ever heard of What Happens to a Dream Deferred? It's a famous poem from the Harlem Renaissance. What Happens to a Dream Deferred? Well, I have a show where I kind of talk about this in more detail called A Revolution Deferred. They robbed us of revolution in South Africa and gave us reform. They robbed us of liberation and gave us integration. Same thing that happened. This is the same tactics they use for Black uprising. That's number one. So the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and elevating traitors and quitters. Mandela was a quitter. He surrendered revolution. He went into jail a revolutionary and came out a traitor.
I agree.
And he didn't come out of jail. He wasn't actually in jail. That was a whole myth they built up around him. He was on that island and living better than most South Africans while he was, quote unquote, in confinement. He was under house arrest, but that's a whole nother thing. But, and as far as Africans converting to Islam, the core of that is many Africans live under Christian oppression. So many Africans mistakenly believe that Islam is a viable alternative to Christianity. So we, from birth, Africans in the West are indoctrinated into Christianity. And because we're indoctrinated into that Abrahamic religion, when we're looking for alternatives, we look for something that is different but the same. So the skeletal framework is basically, Islam is basically Christianity wrapped in a hijab or some shit. So we run to Christianity because we incorrectly view it as a viable alternative and even opposition to Christianity. But if you were raised believing in apocalyptic, monotheistic, hierarchical religion, so I can leave religion and I can do this shit and make it look like I'm making an elevation when it's just a lateral move. But people think any movement means something. So Africans are vulnerable to Islam because there were very powerful, influential individuals in this country who sold us Islam as resistance to and a viable alternative to Christianity. Just like you'll find in southern Sudan, because of the Islamicists committing atrocities there, a lot of the resistance fighters wear wooden crosses, and they see Christianity as a radical resistance to Islamic oppression. So we just trading one oppressor for the next instead of choosing true liberation. But you have people like the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Clarence 13X. There have been many people who have gone into Islam and they confuse, and it's a lack of education because many of the people who became prominent, like Malcolm X, converted to Islam in prison, and they don't have proper theological education or formal history education. So it is. I was just at a panel discussion. I was just at a panel discussion on trying to abolish solitary confinement in Illinois, and constructing federal legislation and legislators to ban solitary confinement in the federal prison system. And many of the brothers, I was like, there were one brother who was incarcerated between 14 in a penitentiary, adult penitentiary, for 14 to 42 years old. And one guy was fresh out of jail, wasn't out of jail a full year out of penitentiary. And they had all Muslims, all converted to Islam, because the Christian locked me up. The Christian enslaved me. The Christian discriminated against me. The cop that abused me and kicked in my door had a John 3:16 tattoo. But
I see. It makes a lot of sense.
They don't understand that there are Africans in northern Nigeria, Africans in Mauritania, Africans in Tunisia undergoing the same atrocities under Islam. So, yeah, that's the thing. I think if I had to give a shorter answer or more comprehensive answer, Africans are converting to Islam out of ignorance of our history and the Africans' historical relationship and connection to Islam. And because we are indoctrinated. And if you are indoctrinated, you'll notice that most people that are indoctrinated into religion, they tend to just hop from religion to religion, or they become spiritual because they don't really shed. Because that happened to me. I was brought up Christian, and all the dysfunction and imposed and voluntary ignorance that comes as being raised as a Christian. Before I could abandon religion altogether, I jumped over to Islam, Ifa, Dogon, Yoruba. I jumped around to all these spiritual systems because I got to believe something. So that's what people just moving laterally and thinking they're moving up. That's all. I'm sorry. I don't even know if I answered your question, but I try to explain.
No, you did. You did. I think I have a better understanding why that is happening, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you.
All right, sis. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. This is why. Listen, I'm not slandering. Listen. Listen to me. If somebody's telling the truth, if someone's telling the truth, it can't be defined as slander. If you come up to me and say, hey, your name is Diallo, and that's the name my mama gave me, my daddy gave me, that's the name on my birth certificate, then how can it be slander? If I see somebody calling me Diallo and I'm offended by that, and I hate using Amazon. So I got a book for you. Where is it? I don't know where my copy is. I don't know who stole it. Don't get it from Amazon. Fuck Amazon, but I'm tired and got it. This book right here, Silent Terror, A Journey into Contemporary African History, African Slavery. This brother, who was slandered by the Nation of Islam, who was slandered by the American Muslim Mission. He's a journalist. He's not a revolutionary. He wasn't an activist. He was merely a journalist. And he went to Mauritania. He went to the Sudan. He went into Senegal, Gambia, and just did reporting on Islamic enslavement of Africans. And there are Arab merchants in Senegal with their enslaved Mauritanian African slaves working while the Arab slave master sits in the back of the tent while his Africans put out the wares and make the deals and do the trade, and they are enslaved. Even what's his name? Who that is? I think didn't Al Sharpton? I got to get my copy. I think it was Al Sharpton. Went to Africa and bought some slaves. Yeah, in 2001, he went to the African continent Where did he go in Africa? And he was condemned and attacked. And they were like, oh, this is just a spectacle. And I'm like, yeah, it's a spectacle. What the fuck else? What the fuck else? But even Al Sharpton went to North Africa, to Arab occupied North Africa, and bought enslaved Africans, purchased them. So I ain't slandering Mauritania. That's all. Okay, Al. Okay. Well, you come back and tell us. If you come back and tell me that there are no more African slaves in that area, then I will come on here and I won't retract it because I'm going off of the history, but I will come out here and say that slavery has been abolished in Mauritania. So I appreciate you, sis. Long time. Anyway, that's it for the BroDiallo broadcast. Like, share, subscribe. Show me some love. The brother on here making me feel embarrassed. I ain't got no subscribers. I don't like to talk about it. You're not supposed to mention low subscribers in mixed company. But yes, I got very low subscribers. I've been doing this. Obscurity has its benefits. I ain't gonna lie, but I do think that I worked and put in enough preparation and time and making a positive contribution to the just. But we a small community. So anyway, this is for by and of the people. You can become a Patreon. I got some packages to put together. You can cash at me, BroDiallo Show. You got a little taste because I was out here jet setting with my rich friends, and they dropped me right back off in the hood on the south side of Chicago, and now they off jet setting somewhere else while I'm back to my life. But I love this life, so it's all good. It's all gravy. Good things to come, though. Better days ahead. But like, share, subscribe, contribute, support. If you think this is something worthy to be sustained and continue, please make a contribution when you can. And with that, I'm going to wish y'all a good evening, and I'll see y'all Friday. Oh, and we headed to Jackson, Mississippi. Rational Radicals, Earn Your Liberation, BroDiallo, Dr. Jared Ball, Skip Coon, and maybe Geechee Y'all. He's still, Geechee's a passport. If Geechee should be back from, he definitely. Geechee Y'all will be there too, live and direct. We're going to have a live discussion with our brothers and sisters in Jackson, Mississippi, with your help and contribution. And we're going to be at Radio Free Jafrica album release, Skip Coon's latest project. He's going to be performing live that night. So during the day, we're gonna have a live in-person discussion with Rational Radicals, Black Liberation Media coming together. And then we're gonna have an album party and a listening party, and it's gonna be get your vinyl on, and then you're gonna have to go to whatever streaming service it is and download Skip Coon's new album. Conscious hip hop is still with us. Hip hop ain't dead, it's just underground. It's just 6 feet under, buried alive. Hip hop ain't dead, it's buried alive. So always support underground, independent, progressive, revolutionary, active artists. Anyway, that's my last message for tonight. And I'll see y'all Friday with what you call it?